Okay, let's unpack this then. We're looking at, what, a 1930 Iowa high school world history curriculum.
That's right.
Sounds maybe a little dry, dusty archives kind of thing, but you're saying this thing, almost a century old, is basically a roadmap for modern education.
Yeah, that's the fascinating paradox here. It's so much more than just,
Yeah.
a list of textbooks.
Mm-hmm.
It reads like an operating manual. And it gets at ideas we talk about now, project-based learning, mastery grading. It's all in there.
Wow.
It feels like these educators back in 1930 were tackling the very same issues, the same problems that dominate school reform debates today.
So why? Why did Iowa need such a detailed guide on how to teach back then? Couldn't they just say, teach chapter 5 and leave it at that?
Well, it came down to how things were set up, the structure, really.
Okay.
See, in Iowa at that time, the local school boards actually picked their own textbooks. The state couldn't force them to use specific books.
Right. So they couldn't mandate the content directly.
Exactly. So to make sure students across the state got a reasonably consistent and quality education, they had to standardize the method, the teaching approach itself.
That makes a lot of sense. Control the process, not the product. And this process was called the unit mastery technique.
Yep, unit mastery. And it was built on these 4 crucial factors. They saw them as totally interconnected, like a system.
Okay, what were they?
You had clear objectives, specific teacher procedures, expected pupil activities, and finally, evidence of mastery. Not just separate steps, but a whole cycle.
Pupil activities.
Mm-hmm.
So if the teacher procedures were laid out, what were the students supposed to be doing? Just listening to lectures, taking notes?
Oh, absolutely not. The document is really clear on this. It hammers home that, quote, only through their own activity pupils learn.
Huh. Active learning way back then.
Right. The teacher's job, to stimulate and direct this activity. They were basically facilitators, running a student-centered classroom before we even called it that.
Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting for me. If the students are active, then mastery can't just be about, like, spitting back dates, right? How did they define actually knowing the material?
They had a pretty radical definition for the time. Mastery wasn't just recall. It required, and this is their phrase, rationalized comprehension that shows grasp of both the controlling principles involved and the basic facts.
Rationalized comprehension. So understanding the why and the how, not just the what. Functional understanding.
Precisely, not just ticking off facts.
Okay, wait. If that's the goal, this deep understanding, what did the evidence of mastery look like? Was it just multiple choice tests?
Well, they had objective tests, sure. But the assessments were stunningly diverse.
Like what?
Things like written themes, oral presentations they called floor talks.
Floor talks?
Making maps, even imaginative tasks. Get this. One example was composing an imaginary account of the building of the Great Pyramid.
Seriously? In 1930, they're asking for synthesis, imagination. That's incredible.
It really is.
But that sounds like a lot for the teacher to manage. And speaking of demanding, the source mentions this non-sorting model, allowing students to retake exams.
Yes.
How did a teacher in the 1930s, probably with big classes, manage retakes for potentially everyone without just collapsing?
Well, look, that's the practical hurdle, no doubt. It must have been challenging. But philosophically, it shows their priorities. The goal was the understanding, that specific level of mastery, not just the grade you got on one Tuesday morning.
Right.
The curriculum flat out said students could try again if the first attempt wasn't good enough. Knowledge trumped the deadline.
So the purpose wasn't ranking or sorting students. What was the big picture goal for teaching history then?
Preparation for effective social membership.
Ah, okay.
Fundamentally, it was civics, taught through history. They even made that explicit in the final unit, Unit 8, the World War and World Reconstruction.
How?
It wasn't just about the past war. It made students grapple with contemporary problems of the 1920s. Things like war reparations, the rise of Bolshevism, labor issues. They even had to debate whether the U.S. should join the League of Nations.
Wow. Directly connecting history to current events and civic responsibility.
Exactly.
It's pretty remarkable how far ahead this document seems. Multimodal assessment, mastery learning, stuff we're still wrestling with today.
It really is. It shows that these progressive ideas in education, they often cycle back. The tension between deep student learning and, the practicalities of running a school, that's not a new problem.
Definitely not. So, thinking about this, if a state curriculum nearly 100 years ago said, yeah, retake the test until you get it, It really makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Mm.
What role does the deadline, the one-shot test, actually play in our schools today? How much is it about genuine understanding versus, well, just meeting the deadline? Something for all of you to chew on until our next deep dive.